Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're exploring the profound and beautifully complex architecture of the Quran's third chapter, Surah Ali Imran. And look, this isn't just some historical document. It's an absolute masterclass in resilience, belief, and the sheer power of human conviction. We're going to break down its structure, dive into its most captivating human stories, and pull out some truly timeless lessons. So, let's jump right in.
So what does it actually take to remain entirely steadfast in faith? It's a huge question, right? Well, this massive 200-verse chapter, which was revealed in the city of Medina, acts as a comprehensive answer to that exact question. It tackles both the internal doubts and the external pressures that constantly challenge our resolve.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the theme of steadfastness, then look at clear versus ambiguous verses, explore the chosen family of Imran, check out 3 miraculous births, and finally wrap up with what it means to hold the rope together.
All right, starting with Section 1, the theme of steadfastness.
What's really fascinating about the architecture of this chapter is how it's essentially split into 2 distinct halves to address 2 very different kinds of challenges. Verses 1 through 120 are all about external and intellectual steadfastness. This part was revealed in the context of the Prophet's philosophical debates with the Christian delegation from Najran. It's basically teaching believers how to stay intellectually resilient when challenged. Then, we get to verses 121 through 200, and the focus shifts to internal, moral steadfastness. This is set against the backdrop of the intense physical and emotional setbacks experienced during the Battle of Uhud. It's like a complete survival guide to resilience, covering both the mind and the body.
Moving on to Section 2, clear versus ambiguous verses. Before the chapter even dives into the historical narratives, it establishes some absolutely crucial ground rules. In verse 7, it literally tells us how to read the scripture, categorizing the verses into 2 types. The first type is called muhkamat. These are your foundational, entirely clear, straightforward verses. They lay down the plain rules, what's allowed, what's prohibited, the core laws, and the obligations. Basically, they are the unambiguous basis for daily practice and form the very foundation of the book.
Now contrast this with the mutashabihat. These are the ambiguous verses. They might contain parables or carry multiple literal meanings. The source material tells us that the true ultimate interpretation, the ta'wil, is known only to Allah. And here's the fascinating part. These verses serve as a literal test for the reader's heart. Those who are genuinely seeking truth rely on the clear verses, while those with a bit of deviation in their hearts, well, they'll chase after the ambiguous ones just to stir up confusion. Which brings us to Section 3, the chosen family of Imran.
Now we transition from this macro theology to some really profound micro-human history. Verse 33 actually elevates 4 distinct lineages above all creation. We're talking about Adam, Noah, the family of Ibrahim, and finally, the family of Imran. This specific mention sets the stage for an incredible legacy of purity and dedication that stems directly from Imran's household.
And it all begins with a mother's profound sincerity. The sources share this beautiful, really touching anecdote. Imran's wife, who was a deeply righteous woman, had been childless for a long time. One day, she simply saw a bird feeding its young, and it sparked this intense, deep yearning in her heart for a child. In her absolute devotion, she made the ultimate vow, promising to dedicate her unborn child entirely to the service of the temple.
That sets off Section 4, 3 miraculous births. That single pure act of maternal devotion triggers a spectacular chain reaction. First, the vow is made. Then, surprisingly for the time, she gives birth to a girl, Maryam. And incredibly, the vow was accepted anyway. Following this, a lottery is held among the temple caretakers, and the elderly prophet Zechariah actually wins her guardianship. And you guys, this is where the miracles truly kick into high gear. Zechariah starts repeatedly finding out-of-season fruits in Maryam's private chamber. We're talking summer fruits in the dead of winter and winter fruits in the middle of summer.
Naturally astounded, Zechariah asks where on earth this sustenance is coming from. Maryam just offers this beautifully simple, completely steadfast answer. This is from Allah. Allah provides to whom He wills without measure. Her absolute conviction completely shifts the elderly prophet's perspective on what is actually possible in his own life.
Inspired by Maryam's unshakable faith, Zechariah realizes God can grant the impossible. So he earnestly prays for a child, despite his extreme old age and the fact that his wife is barren. To his total amazement, angels answer him, announcing the coming of a son, Yahya. When an astounded Zechariah asks for a sign, he's given a really unique one. He won't be able to speak to people for 3 days, except by gestures, essentially dedicating his silence entirely to praising God. And the son promised to him, Yahya, is described with some truly incredible characteristics. He's a witness to the word from Allah, a leader, chaste, and a prophet among the righteous. He perfectly embodies the chapter's core theme of internal moral steadfastness. He remains totally free from worldly passions and completely devoted to the truth.
Then we hit the climax of these narratives with the third miracle. This is the fatherless creation of Isa, or Jesus, in the womb of the Virgin Maryam. When Maryam asks how this can possibly be, the answer is the ultimate demonstration of divine sovereignty. God simply commands it by saying, "Be," and it is. This entirely shatters conventional biological rules, completely cementing this overarching theme of absolute trust in divine capability.
Finally, we arrive at Section 5, Holding the Rope Together.
Up to this point, we've been looking at historical and miraculous exemplars of faith. Now, the surah bridges these individual stories into a really powerful call to action for the broader community. Verse 103 presents this enduring command, and hold firmly to the rope of Allah all together and do not become divided. The text reminds the community of a time when they were enemies, and how faith united their hearts into a real brotherhood. Steadfastness, it turns out, is not just an individual pursuit, it is absolutely a collective responsibility. The text then breaks down exactly what a successful, unified, steadfast community looks like. They don't just passively exist, they actively promote societal well-being. They call to goodness, they actively enjoin what is right, they actually have the courage to forbid what is wrong, and all of this is anchored by a firm, unwavering belief in Allah.
And the ultimate stakes of this unity? They literally couldn't be higher. The text paints this striking visual contrast of eternal destinies. On one side, you have the bright, illuminated faces of those who maintain their unity, their faith, and their steadfastness, residing in Allah's eternal mercy. And this is contrasted sharply against the darkened faces of those who splintered, divided, and ultimately rejected their faith.
We've seen how Surah Ali Imran masterfully weaves everything together, from the intellectual debates of Najran and the moral trials of Uhud to the quiet devotion of Imran's family and the awe-inspiring miracles of Maryam, Yahya, and Isa. It all leads to this massive call for absolute unity. So I want to leave you with this final thought to reflect on. In our modern world, which is absolutely filled with external doubts and internal struggles, how will you hold the rope? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep seeking knowledge, and I'll see you next time.